Chapter 20, Counting Error Checks. So as you know by now, the software, SARU we call it, has two halves. The C tool is the data collection half, and this is where you count your inventory and enter invoices. And then once you're finished counting the inventory and entering the invoices, you need to finalize the C tool by solving any errors which are flagged by the automatic error flags. So the point here is that the tool is going to do some work for you by finding where there could be errors in the data, and it will help direct you to those errors so that you can find them and fix them. So in order to do this, you'll need to go into the errors tab or the errors worksheet in the C tool, and then you'll work systematically through the errors in order to resolve them, or in some cases by overriding them. So we're going to have a look at those occasions, and I'm going to show you inside the tool and see how this works. So fixing errors, most times we're going to need to fix an error. An error is because some sort of information has been entered incorrectly or is missing, and it's important that we fix those so that those errors don't affect our results. So to fix a specific error, you read the comments for that error. You can do so by hovering your mouse over the red triangle in the top right hand corner of the cell, and then follow the instructions to resolve the error. So let's have a quick look here. I've got a little cheat sheet here, so I've loaded up a C tool with a bunch of errors. So this is the error table. Each one of these little boxes is a specific error, and it's telling you, so this is for instance the vessel error. It's a type 1 error, and they've got one of those types of error, and this is the identifying information. But that little red triangle is up here. You see all these boxes have red triangles right next to them here, and if you hover your mouse over that, you'll see in each case there's a description of the error. So that is a useful thing to read. It will remind you when you're using the tool what those errors mean and how to resolve them. And then there's a second possibility for overriding to fixing errors, which is overriding the errors. So in certain circumstances, you can investigate the error but then decide you want to override it. In order to do this, you simply insert a 0 into the cell that shows the error count. Note that it's important that you understand the error before you override it or you introduce errors into your calculations. Additionally, when you move on to the R half of SARU, if you haven't either resolved or overridden errors in the C tool, you'll be reminded to complete this step. It won't allow you to update the information in the R tool without solving the C tool errors. So let's have a quick look here, and we're going to run you through a few of the specific errors. So the first one here is that I'm showing vessel errors, or a vessel error. It's contributing to this total count errors of 8. And if I wanted to override this, I could simply insert a 0. And then you see that the error table turns green. The error count comes down. Of course, in this instance, I didn't solve the error, so I've just overridden. So that's just showing you how you override. I can also actually override the master error. That would allow me to update the R tool, but that would be a bad idea to just blindly do that. So let's take a look at these specific errors. So we're not going to run through every single one. Batches you'll get onto later date. We're just going to run through a handful here to sort of get the idea, and then during practical training you'll become more comfortable with all of these. So the first one is a vessel error. Well, as we know, in the counting tool we have to count all different vessels. Well, we have a vessel error if the computer doesn't recognize what the vessel that's trying to be counted in. So in this case, we can copy the inputted information, come to our count tab. I can see it right here at the top, but if I wanted to find this, if I perhaps wasn't zoomed into the right part of the counting tool, I could select this whole column, Control F, which will bring up my find box, and then I do Control V. It will copy the information I just copied from the error table, and you can see when I pressed Find Next, it automatically jumped here. And so obviously, rather than having a recognizable vessel name or a barcode that can be looked up, we've just got some nonsense in here. I replaced this earlier, and I know it's meant to be this product. And so when the software updates, it's now going to recognize that as a product which it has information for. And so happily, the error's gone away. So that's how to resolve an error. Obviously, much better than just overriding it is to fix the information. Then second piece of information, or second error, we have is the not in BS table. So that simply means that the product ID is not in the BS table and we need the pricing information on it. So here's my BS table. I actually removed this and I just copied it over here for quickness in this video. But you'll see basically I've got pricing information on a product, and it's Gaio Sweet Vermouth. Just by putting that back in, I've now resolved that error. So the next error is BS table ID not found. So this happens if you enter a product ID into the BS table which isn't recognized. Sometimes this happens because of version control. If the product was renumbered, this can occur, or if you type something in wrong. But similarly, I can see it down here, but just to show you again, so I can select in this column, Control Space to select the whole column, Control F to use my find function, Control V, paste the information I just copied from the table, and then find next, and here I am here. So obviously this is something I just entered by mistake. I just did it for the benefit of this video. So when I erase this, we've got that gone away. So the next error is BS table incomplete. So this happens when we have a product ID in the table which has been correctly entered, it's recognized, but we're missing the rest of the information. I can use that same find technique. So here it is here. So they're missing information on well bourbon. So they don't know what it costs. We need to fill in the size, we need to fill in the serving size, and the accountability exclude column. More on this later in the next chapter. But basically, all of this missing information was being flagged, and now that I've filled it in, you can see that error has gone away. So that's a good one. So next one we have is the repeated invoice error. So the repeated invoice error, as the name suggests, is trying to flag if we've possibly entered the same information from one invoice twice. And in this case, it thinks that the information on 15 and 16 is the same information. And obviously this is due to invoicing. So let's have a look at the invoice tab here and take a look at what's going on here. So it's 15 and 16. I can use my Control I to just focus on these two. And yes, as we see, the dollar amounts, both of these invoices have 5 items in them. Both of them are distributed by Southern, and both have the exact same invoice total and exact same date. And then further, if we want to scroll down here, you can see that in every occasion we've just repeated the order. Again, you'd have been pretty silly to do this and enter the same invoice 2 times in a row without noticing. This is just for illustration purposes. In this case, if I had double entered a product, then they really got 1 bottle of this product entered, and I've entered 2. So what will happen is, in effect, it will show that the product is missing when it's just due to a repeated invoice. So it should be pretty easy to find. Instead, there's a flag on this. It's another reason why it's really important to match our invoices to the penny. But in this case, simply erasing the second, or all the information from the second invoice would fix this. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this column all as one. Make sure I scroll down all the way to the bottom. And that was important. So delete that information so I no longer have any information filled in for invoice number 16. Software is updating, and when I come back, that error has gone away, which brings us on to our next error. So non-matching distributors. What the heck does that mean? Well, on an invoice is obviously basically a delivery bill from a distributor saying this is what was delivered during this delivery, and this is how much money you owe us. So based on the fact that certain distributors in certain areas of the country distribute different products, it wouldn't make any sense if in our system two products which are on the same invoice were distributed by a different company. What that would mean is that we need to update one of those products' distributor information, because as I said, the fact that those deliveries were all on one piece of paper from one distributor necessarily implies that they can't have been from different distributors. So in this case, we've got a non-matching distributor on invoice number 15. So let's take a look. So on invoice number 15, what the software does here is it compares the name of the distributor on the first few deliveries. So you can see this first item here is Don Julio's Blanco, and it's delivered by Southern. And the next one here is Finlandia, which is distributed by Breakthrough. So that's not possible. The third product is Saranac Ginger Beer, which is by Breakthrough. And the next product is Corbel, also by Breakthrough. So we know in that case that this Don Julio is incorrect. We need to update the distributor to Breakthrough. And so you see what I did there was go ahead and copy the name of the product. And I can go and find it in the distributor name column, in the invoice name column here in column R. Do my find function, it's going to jump there. And I can see indeed that this is Southern when all the other different flavors and sizes of this product are by Breakthrough. But I did that long way. Let me show you the quick way of doing this. If you need to update the distributor name, another shortcut you can use only works on the invoice tab, but Control R. So it's important, because I'm on Don Julio, that I need to be on this line for Don Julio. Control R. And it's actually, you see, jumps me right there. So one more time, if I go back here, Control R jumps you right there. I can fill out breakthrough, and it's going to fill that in for me. And then, of course, I need to do Control J to allow the adjustment to occur. And now, when I come back here, you can see that this is a lookup field, so it's been corrected now that I've corrected the information. And similarly, the error's gone away from the error table. So one more error to solve. You're getting the idea of this now. Invoice name not recognized. This one, again, is an error I specifically made. So invoice name not recognized, again, relates to the invoice tab. I can go ahead and select the column, do a search, not found, which reminds us that often we have to select values here when we're searching, and then it finds it right away. And I made this error earlier, so I know that the reason we're getting an error here is because I took the I out of blind. But I can go ahead and fix this now. All I need in this case is to put an I. So there we are. That's how to solve CTOOL errors. Essentially, when you're finished with your counts and your invoices, when you're ready to start working the R tool, you're going to come here, check if there's any of these errors are showing. You could get reminded about what the nature of the error is by reading these little tips, and you need to ideally resolve the errors. In some rare cases, you can resolve them, and once you get it down to 0, you're all set. And then obviously we've made significant changes, so always a good idea to save the tool. So Control S, we're good to go. So that's it on CTOOL errors.